thegearnetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
This is Roxy from Vixen, and you're listening to All Bets Are Off with Robbie Vegas. Rev it up, Robbie.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the rock star Robbie Vegas with another brand new episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast. If this is your first time joining us, thank you for tuning in. And if you are a longtime listener, welcome back. I will say I would love it if you guys could follow the All Bets Are Off podcast on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at ABAO Pod, or all three. And make sure you subscribe to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, wherever you listen to your podcast. Please hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star rating and a review. I got to say, we're having a banger of a year with guests. We've had some truly amazing people on the show. And today we have the metal queen herself, Lee Aaron. We're going to talk about her new release coming up very soon, Tattoo Me. And we're just kind of going to go back to 1982 when she debuted, and we're just going to talk a little bit about her entire career. So stick around, and right now we're going to listen to one of her songs before we jump into this interview. This one specifically is called What You Do to My Body.
What you do to my body, body.
All right, Lee, the first thing I want to do is just say thank you for being here on the All Bets Are Off podcast. I really appreciate your time.
Sounds great. I'm delighted to be here. Cool.
Well, let's just kind of jump right into what you have going on now, and we'll kind of backtrack and jump around all over the place from there. But you have a new album coming out very soon.
I do. Well, we do, the band and myself. It's called Tattoo Me, and it is, I think, in my entirety of catalog. I think it's including best ofs and stuff. It's like my 19th album, but it's an album of covers, which is something that I have never done before. Like an album full of covers of material that we picked because it was fun and influential to us when we were young. But it's a really groovy little record. So you got to check it out. Yeah.
So what was the inspiration behind deciding to do this specific album?
You know, again, I've said this a few times before, but working with a really wonderful, wonderful group of musicians in my band right now. It's myself, Sean Kelly, Toronto guitarist, Dave Reimer, Vancouver bassist, and my husband, John Cody, is obviously the drummer. And everybody's just such a wonderful person and creative powerhouse in their own right. We're always trying to come up with what is our next project, fun project going to be. And we've done quite a few original albums together since 2016. And when we were on the Monsters of Rock cruise last year, and we're having dinner together, and we're like, okay, what are we going to do next? What's going to be because usually what we do is we gear up the spring and fall. Or spring and summer, we end up doing the majority of our tour dates. Because that's when, fairs, festivals happen. And fall is usually when we might have quite a few less dates and we have time to launch into what's our next creative project going to be. And we were like, I think it was Sean Kelly floated the idea of what if we do a covers record of some of material that would be, stuff that we love and was influential to us. And And we were just like, yeah, that sounds really cool and fun. And so that's what we launched into last fall. And the result is Tattoo Me.
That's amazing. I love that. And you mentioned that you were on the Monsters of Rock cruise last year. And was that your first Monsters of Rock cruise?
It was my first Monsters of Rock cruise, and it was quite an adventure. We really had fun. It was great. It was great bands on the cruise.
It's amazing every time I see the lineups every year for that. So, and just to backtrack just a little bit, you said that you think this is your 19th album, correct?
Yes. Well, I have 16 studio albums, and I have 2 best ofs and a live album and a Christmas album. And so I believe if you put it all together, it's number 19. Yeah.
That's incredible. And I just want to point out to my listeners that your official debut was 1982, which is crazy. It's just
what?
Right. It's amazing. And you've been around, since, like I said, the debut is in 1982, and you've won countless awards. I know you won Best Vocalist up for the Toronto Music Awards 3 different times. And I guess my question to that would be, how do you have such longevity in the business? What advice would you give to somebody just breaking in right now? Because you've been around for so long and managed to keep things fresh and keep, coming up with more music and more ideas.
Sometimes I get asked this question a lot, and, the more that social media evolves, the more I sort of question whether I'm a qualified person to even speak into that, because it just kind of seems like with social media these days that it's all about having a formula to get likes and things like that and followers. And I know that even if you I don't know about the Grammys, but I know the Juno Awards here, they want to know what your numbers are on socials. It's not always about how great the music is, but I'm old school, right? Like for me, it's about the music. And, so what advice I would give to young people is, it's great to be influenced by other artists, as am I, but it's not good to be an imitator. Don't just imitate. You need to find your authentic voice. You need to work hard at that. Advice I would give to young female artists is learn some music software so you can produce yourself like me. Like I've done that, honestly, like it's like been an incredible money saver, because I have like a world-class setup. No, it's not huge, but it's world-class in terms of the components that I have to be able to record myself at home. And, if you are dependent on an outside producer and an outside engineer and going into a big studio, and not only is it cost prohibitive, but, you're going to be lost. And so having an understanding of the vocabulary and what music software is and what it can do, and how to how to record yourself, like start with GarageBand and move forward from there. I think that's great advice. And never stop practicing. We live in an era now where you don't even really have to know how to play an instrument to make a record, because there are programs that will just, find chord patterns and do stuff for you. AI is, I guess wonderful and also scary, right?
Yes.
I'm all about, being the real deal. And, so don't ever stop practicing. For me, even moving forward, even though I've been quite prolific, I got a lot of work out there in the cosmos of, albums I've done. Don't be attached to the number of likes or YouTube views you get. Don't be attached to the outcome. It's not really about the outcome. It's about the work and the creative process itself. It certainly is for me. And if that is rewarding in and of itself, you're going to do good work. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I absolutely know what you mean.
Produce something that's worth listening to. So, yeah.
Well, I want to, you said something in there that triggered a thought for me, and that was be yourself and don't just imitate other people. So when you were breaking in the 80s, do you remember who was inspiring you at that point in time when you were just becoming you?
Oh, 100%. And I've said this many times, I've been hugely influenced by the Girls in Heart, Ann and Nancy Wilson, and Fleetwood Mac as well. I mean, they weren't as tough of a band, but they were a bona fide rock band. Fleetwood Mac was a bona fide rock band, that incarnation in the late 70s with Christine McVie and Stevie Nicks. And that is what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a girl who had an equal voice in the band, was a songwriter. And that's everything I loved about Heart. Ann and Nancy Wilson, they were equals in their band. They were writing the songs. They were playing their instruments. They had a voice. They didn't trade on their sexuality just to get noticed, which became a marketing tool of a lot of the corporate labels in the mid to late 80s of like, this is how we're going to market women that do rock because it's a thing now. It's like, here, you need to wear this lingerie. No, thank you. It was hard because I was the early part of my career somewhat of a pressured and a bit of a victim of some of that bad sex kitten marketing, which I tried to move away from as rapidly as I could. But and then that's everything that I loved about Ann and Nancy Wilson. Like I wanted to be them, I wanted to be that girl in the band. And I loved Led Zeppelin, of course, and the Runaways. And I'm just trying to think probably, Robert Plant and Ann Wilson, I listened over and over and over to them. And I've said this again many times before, they were the greatest vocal teachers, just putting those vinyls on my little suitcase record player in my basement and, spending hours down there. We didn't have gaming. We didn't have social media. So I just sit down there and sing, for hours and hours. So, yeah.
Now you mentioned trying to get away from, that sex type of marketing. And did you find that when you did push away from that and pull away from that, did you see a difference in your career at that point where you were starting to be taken maybe more seriously?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I stumbled through a few really awkward things when I was young. I had this first manager, and he had wonderful ideas in terms of like taking me to England to showcase at the Marquee Club and got us on eventually on Reading Festival. I mean, he had some great marketing ideas, but he had some that I wasn't completely aligned with, unfortunately. Being a woman singing hard rock, especially in Canada, was hard enough in the beginning, in the early 80s. There was literally a handful of us around the whole world doing it.
Oh, yeah.
There was me, Joan Jett, Lita Ford, Doro Pesh, Girls' School. Mm-hmm. There was a British band called Rock Goddess that came a little bit later, and they weren't as popular, but they were still really good. But you could count us on one hand pretty much, right? Yeah. And so, especially in Canada, that was still, very parochial at that time. And there was no women in Canada doing that. So I was kind of an anomaly. Mm. And then, of course, being a young girl and, some of my early marketing pictures are me wearing these super sexy outfits and short shorts. And because I was just I was 18, 19 years old. I didn't really know any better. I thought, I guess this is what I'm being told to wear. This is how it's done. Mm-hmm. And this industry person must know so much more than I do. And then that also was a bit of work to kind of against me because people thought because I was a songwriter as well. And people thought, well, she's just this pretty little tart that sings. Mm-hmm. And so then I was like, wait a minute. Wait, back up here. And so that was, after this first couple, I was climbing out of a little bit of a hole of a little bit of awkward marketing to be able to fight for some credibility. By the time I got to my fourth album, the album with Powerline, and the fifth album, Body Rock, in Canada, I was very fortunate to have been part of the inception of Much Music and MTV with my videos. So I was able to more market myself the way that I saw myself and present myself the way I saw myself. And so that was advantageous because then people got to see more of a full picture. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you talk about Body Rock, that was around 1989. So, at that point in time, you mentioned some heavy hitters like Joan Jett and Lita Ford, but then Vixen comes onto the scene as well. And they had a lot of success with their self-titled album. So was that something that you kind of had your eye on at the time too? Like, oh, okay, like this is, good for all of us as women that, Vixen comes out, they go gold and they're touring the world. And, then you come out with Body Rock and huge success for you. So did you ever, look at Vixen and say like, okay, we got some more people paving the way for us?
Well, Vixen took it to a whole nother level, like with girls, like it was sort of like girl school on steroids in the US, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it was. And I thought that was fantastic. I mean, they were all women and they were all playing their instruments. And I had met Maxine and her sister Roxy years early at some party after the Rainbow Club in LA. I don't even really completely remember. I remember Astrid Young was there, Neil Young's sister, because she was in LA doing something. And super nice gals. And they were in a band called Madam X at that time.
Yes. Yeah.
And then Roxy, of course, went on to be the drummer in Vixen. And respect, man. Like, what can I say? Recently in Canada, last year, actually, I received a star on Canada's Walk of Fame, and a very well-known Canadian personality, fashion icon. Her name is Jeannie Becker here. She did my induction, and she talked to, she was part of co-host for my induction, and she brought me on stage, and she talked about how, she's like, certainly in Canada, she's just like, you took it to the max. You broke a glass ceiling for women in rock in Canada when other women weren't doing it. But and so that was really lovely and really nice, but I wasn't the only woman. I mean, there was, like I said, there were the Doros, there was the Girls School, there was Vixen that came later. And, we were part of a group of very small elite group of women that really, really had to fight to be taken seriously musically, as well as in the boardroom. With creative decisions that were being made on a business level, right, for us. And we definitely had some walls to break down. So
now, just staying on that topic with all the names that we're talking about, did you get a chance to perform with say Vixen, Lita Ford, Doro, like any of those?
Well, yeah, I years ago I performed in Germany, and Doro was in a band called Warlock, and we did some shows together. She was fantastic. She was just like this, like 5 foot, the same height as me, a little bit shorter, 5'1", just like little powerhouse of, musical talent and great voice. And then Doro and I were also on the Monsters of Rock cruise together last year, although our paths unfortunately didn't cross. It was a bit of an experience for me because I wasn't really anticipating, like, every time I walk outside my cabin, I'm going to bump into everyone in the hallways, like, Lee, can we get our photo with you? And like, and I'm like, so Doro, I think, was a little intimidated too, because she was, it was bad for me, and it was bad for Doro too. And so we were kind of like pulled in a million different directions every time we went somewhere, right? And so, but yeah, Lita Ford and I performed together not too long ago. It was pre-COVID. Just pre-COVID, we shared a stage at the Regent Casino in Winnipeg here. And it was just really cool because I'd never met her. We obviously had been in each other's orbits our entire careers. Yeah. And it was sort of like old friends meeting. She's like, Lee Aaron. I'm like, Lita Ford. Like, so we were backstage and we were like hanging out and chit-chatting. And she's like, okay, dude, you got to come on and sing a song with me in my set. And I'm like, we're on for Cherry Bomb. So we went on and did Cherry Bomb together. So that was really, really cool. I've played with Heart. A few years ago, we did a festival I think it was Thunder Bay, Ontario. It was a big festival. And yeah, I got to hang with those ladies a bit. Ann Wilson gave me some real nice compliments on my talent and my voice. And Nancy and I talked about having kids because her twins with Cameron Crowe were about maybe 12 or something at the time. And my kids were like toddlers. And I'm like, how do you do it? How do you be a girl rock star and be a mother at the same time? So yeah, she gave me some great pointers. It's like, she said, you stop doing tours. You just do weekend warrior work. Go home. You're there. You can be the soccer mom all week. And then you get on a plane Friday night and go do a couple shows on the weekend and come back home,
Yeah. And that seems to be the popular thing right now for, a lot of, 80s bands, 90s bands, 70s bands. Like a lot of those people still, do the weekend warrior thing. And I want to stay on Body Rock for a second because again, it was 1989, and I know that went double platinum for you in Canada. And in the span of your career, you were also nominated for 16 Juno Awards. I mean, that's really impressive.
So I think it was 10. I don't know. Someone else in another interview said 16.
Really? Yeah. When I was doing my research, it came up as 16. Yeah.
So because there's so much stuff. So I have 16 studio albums, 19 if you count best ofs and the Christmas record. But I have 16 like studio albums, 10 Juno nominations, 3 Toronto Music Awards, of CMPA Songwriters Award. I don't know, like I don't even, but yeah. So because I don't want incorrect information to go out there. So.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Now, when you went double platinum, like the music video for "What You Do to My Body" was out, and like that had to be just a whirlwind for you because that was a really huge record. Do you remember what it was like at that time when that record broke for you?
Totally. So I had a moderate kind of career in Canada. Like I was able to go and do large nightclubs and open up for people and buy Body Rock. But that album really blew things wide open. I think radio had been prepped for me because my previous album, the self-titled album, we released a song called Only Human, which was it was like a soft rock ballad. It was very radio friendly because I struggled to get radio play because the radio thought I was too heavy for the longest time. And so it kind of primed radio for me. And then What You Do to My Body and that video was just like people have told me they thought it was kind of fresh and new because we didn't rely on the fire and brimstone and the dark, metal kind of vibey stuff. And we were like, no, let's make this super fun. Let's objectify men in a fun, lighthearted, tongue-in-cheek kind of way and make it like we tried to flip the tables on sexuality in that video. And it was just like, it just resonated with, I think, all women of my generation at that time. And so I was driving in our crappy little van. We were driving from our gig in Winnipeg. I think we just played the Zoo or something in Winnipeg, which was like a large rock club, but pretty dingy venue. And we were driving and I was asking my tour manager, like, okay, like, where are we going next? Because we were on the road for like 6 weeks. He's like, we're playing something called Barn. I think it was called Barn 22 or something. And I'm like, we're playing a barn. He's like, yeah. I'm like, we're playing a barn. We're in our crappy little van, driving across the prairies. We're going to play in a barn in the middle of nowhere. And I'm thinking, do I really want to continue doing this? And then we turned on the radio and like, I don't remember which station. It might have been one of the main stations just out of Winnipeg as we were driving out of Winnipeg. And he's like, and now the number one song across Canada this week, What You Do to My Body by Lee Aaron. And I was like, what? We have a hit song? Because I had been on the road. I was a little bit out of touch. I wasn't really watching a lot of TV that was the week that our song hit number one. And then we arrive at this barn, large barn with like a balcony and loft and everything. And, but it's in the middle of nowhere. And I'm going like, who's going to come here? That night, it was packed to the rafters, like 1,800 people. And that is when the next gig was like a lineup outside the door to get into our show. So that's kind of when things really, when our song hit number one and we were, on the Canadian charts, things really started to shift, and the video became a hit video, and it went into heavy rotation, and then the album started flying off the shelves, and then all of the media that never gave me the time of day all of a sudden wanted to talk to me. So it was like, okay.
That's incredible. And now it's listed as one of the top 20 most influential Canadian rock albums of all time. So that has to make you feel great.
Well, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. I think I'd like to think that, it hopefully opened some doors and changed the landscape for Canadian female rockers, and I'm grateful for that. Like you look at these wonderful artists that have come from Canada, Avril Lavigne, Alanis Morissette, well, Shania is amazing in her own right, but she managed to take that whole video era thing and those fun videos and integrate like a country rock vibe into like she sort of changed the landscape of country, single-handedly, and then nowadays, I don't know how familiar you are with Canadian music, but we've got bands like The Beaches, J.J. Wilde, Phoebe Dobson, new artist, upcoming hard rock artist called Villavant. She's amazing. There's quite a few amazing Canadian women.
I actually am decently familiar with Canadian rock music because I'm from Buffalo. So everything comes right there over the border and we get it. So So I want to talk about too, you took a little break from rock for a while and you were doing jazz. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when you were doing that, and then in 2011 you did Sweden Rock, was that you coming back to the rock roots from jazz? Is that how that happened?
No, actually, the transition gig was a gig I did with Heart in 2006. I had been from the late 90s onwards singing jazz and blues, and then in 2004, our daughter was born. My husband and I had a daughter, and then in 2006, my son was born, and I was kind of on a hiatus, from recording. That's for sure. I was doing very, very few live gigs because my kids were just super little and they needed their mom to be around, obviously. Yeah. It's one thing for the rock and roll guys, they can go on tour and their wives stay home. But when you're the rock mom, it's a completely different thing. And my agent kept calling me and asking me, I'm getting so many offers for you to go out and do your rock show. And I kept saying, nope, not ready. I'm just not ready. Plus, part of the reason I started singing jazz, well, besides that I love that art form as well, but everybody's career fell off a cliff in the 90s with grunge. Like I'm sure every single classic rock hair band from, everyone was struggling in the 90s because the landscape changed immeasurably with grunge music. Mm-hmm. Nobody, the media, the radio, nobody wanted to support that style of music anymore. It was like, that was the old school. It's out. This is the new, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Green Day. It was a completely different thing. And so I really had negative feelings about coming back and getting involved with a record label and back into the whole pop culture machine. I felt kind of betrayed by it. So when my agent was calling me, asking me to go out and put my rock show back together, I was just like, no, I don't want to do it. And then when our son was about 6 months old, he called me and he said, how would you like to play with Heart? And I was like, dang, I can't say I'm like, where and when? And then I'm like, okay, I'll put my rock show back together and go out and do that. So that's kind of what started that.
Oh, okay. I mean, still though, that Sweden Rock Fest is a pretty amazing show. So that had to be a wonderful experience for you to get back out there with that too.
Totally. Oh, that was such a great experience. Both times I played Sweden Rock. It was just awesome. Loved it.
Now, is it true that in 2016, that was your first release of a rock album in 20 years?
It was my first, 1996. Yes. So
okay.
Rock, yes. But
yes,
not
rock, yeah.
In general. I put a few albums in between, but they were, more jazz and blues oriented. But So yeah, I guess 96 would have been my last rock record. Yeah. So yes, you're right. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So, what was that? Was that like a nerve-wracking thing? Like that's coming out, you're wondering like how it's going to do if that like rock crowd is still there, or were you just super confident with it and you were just ready to go?
I felt good about the record musically, 100%. I really did. I was nervous about getting back into the industry period, just because of everything I'd gone through. In the 90s into 2000s, I've had, a pretty illustrious experience in that, I had to go bankrupt in 1996. And that was because of a position kind of that my former manager and lawyer put me in with, they were like, oh, you only have to sell 75,000 albums to break even. Let's start our own label. We'll all be partners. And let's borrow $500,000 from the Federal Business Development Bank. And I'm like, and then when it all fell apart because grunge happened. Yeah. And I didn't go multi-platinum. I didn't even I came about half close to breaking even. Mm-hmm. They just kind of jumped ship and I got left with the debt. So I showed up in Vancouver one day and there were a bunch of banker boxes on my doorstep. My manager had sent out all my financial affairs and I started going through the boxes. And this is true. And I was like, I'm like $426,000 in debt. And it was like, I had to make some decisions about what I was going to do. It was like, do I spend the next decade of my life and all of the future albums I'm going to do to make music to pay off the debt, or should I just go bankrupt and start all over? So I went bankrupt.
Oh wow! And that was that Hip Chick? Is that what that was?
Hip Chick Music. That's correct.
Yep.
That was 96. And I'm not embarrassed. Honestly, it was the most freeing experience of my life. It was the best thing I ever did. And it was a wake up call for me to take charge of my business affairs. So every album that I have done since 96 has been on my own boutique label. And I have found licensors around the world to license. Like I'm working in partnership with Metalville right now. They're great, by the way. They're fantastic. And a company called Propaganda in Canada. So Metalville would be, are you in Vegas, Robbie Vegas? I have to ask.
I am in New York.
Oh, you're in New York?
Yeah.
Well, that's a little bit of a.
Yeah. Well, you're in New York. We'll get to that.
So I'm on Orchard Sony in the States for distribution. I'm on Rough Trade in Europe, Ward Music in Japan, and Metalville throughout Europe, and Propaganda distribution in Canada on Big Sister Records, my label. And so it allows me to be completely 100% in charge of all the creative elements. Like before my album comes out, I have financed the recording, production, mixing, mastering, all of the artwork. It's a complete package that I hand to somebody. Wow. And videos as well. So, and, you talk about, the 80s, like I just love being in, not that I'm a control freak, but because I work in creative collaboration with people that I love when I make these things, and I work with subcontractors. But I love being in kind of control of how I'm marketed and how everything goes now. Well, yeah, and it's much more financially successful for me now that I've taken charge of my own business affairs.
Oh, I can understand that completely. And with all the experience under your belt, it just makes, complete sense that you would know better. And, you brought up the new album again, so I do want to close on that. But before I, have you do that, I just want to say that your Christmas album, Almost Christmas, is really good. And I love when rock and metal people do like Christmas albums or Christmas songs. I love it. I can't get enough of it. And so I just wanted to plug that really quick and, let my listeners know to make sure they check that out. But I know we got to get you out of here, so let's plug the new album again, Tattoo Me, and let everybody know where they can get it, the exact date that they can get it, and if you want to plug your social media and where everybody could follow you for updates and all that, that would be great.
So the album is called Tattoo Me, and it's I'm really proud of it. It's really fun. You should go grab it. I think there's something for everyone on the record. It drops April 26th, although if you go to just Amazon.com music, it's there right now or available as a pre-order. If you want colored vinyl, you'll have to order a European pressing. And to find out all things about Lee Aaron, probably the best place to go is www.leeaaron.com. You can connect to me at all my socials buttons through there. If you're not up for that, Lee Aaron Music on Facebook and leeaaron.music on Instagram.
All right, fantastic. Lee, thank you so much for being here. And, I hope that in the future we can have you on again.
Absolutely. It was great talking, Robbie Vegas, who's in New York.
She comes like thunder, rising from the ground. She'll bring you under, she moves without a sound. She holds a passion like no other could. No one should talk, words understood. Riding electric song. So get addicted to this, got to get on.
All right, rockers, once again, Lee Aaron, make sure you check out her website, check her out on tour, and follow her on social media. Make sure you grab Tattoo Me. And if this is your first time hearing of Lee Aaron, I urge you to go back and check out her back catalog because there is an incredible amount of music and releases here. So thank you guys for joining us on the All Bets Are Off podcast, and we'll catch you next time.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.